All right, so we got some new teasers, and these are heavy hitter teasers, in my opinion. A lot of audits on current spells that currently exist in Wizard 101. So I want to talk all about that, give you guys my thoughts and opinions. Obviously, I've already seen them just by, already looking at them, and I'm like ready to record this video. Just saying wow, honestly wow, that's all I can really say. But let's get into the teasers, or I guess spell changes that are happening in Wiz. And the first one that I'm going to show is traps. Now all these teasers were already shown today on Cam's stream, so I've literally just taken them from Cam's stream. Yeah, shout out Cam, thank you for all the teasers. But literally traps are getting changed in Wizard 101. So your traps that you guys once know for your own school that are 30% are now being buffed. These are now 40% traps, and this is how it's going to be for every school. And if you are on fire, you will be getting your fuels buffed to 40%. The only ones that are not being changed in this trap update is going to be Hex, Curse, Elemental Trap, Spirit Trap. Those ones are not being changed. Anything that's like a tri-trap that's like incorporating other schools is not getting buffed, as well as Hex and Curse aren't getting buffed due to the fact of them being universal cards. So those aren't going to be buffed, but the school specific ones are all getting buffed. Really good change. But my main question is always going to be, hey, how is this going to affect a lot of fights in Wiz? Because there has been a lot of fights in Wiz where you are missing like another like 5% from like a kill shot to save you from another round, and them adding this extra, like, what is it, 10% essentially? Yeah, essentially 10%. And this does affect challenge modes, raids, and everything like that, which there has been plentiful times where you need 5 extra percent, 10 extra percent. And the fact is the main deck variations of these are going to be another 10% stacked up on that. This can change a lot of fights. But if they do revisit a lot of fights, that means that those fights are either going to have more health, more res, something like that. And that depends on KI if they want to do that, or if anyone's going to be revisiting fights as a whole. But really good change. It does affect a lot of strategies, if I do say so myself. And when it comes to fights where you can't use feint, I know like in casual play, you can't use feint, maybe you can't use backdraft. These 40% are going to be good. My question is though, are weaving traps going to be buffed in any sort of way? Because the thing is with the weaving traps, these are already 40%. But there might not even be a reason to weave into myth anymore. I feel like these should be maybe 45%, maybe it's pushing it, I don't know. But I don't know how, if I'm going to be weaving into myth anymore, just because the fact is when you can just use a main deck, that's going to be 40%. This will still be viable, I guess, just for stackability purposes. If you are going to be like, multi-trapping and such, it'll still have viability. But I feel like, I don't know, maybe it's just the inside of me just saying like, yo, these should be 45%. But hey, I was, I don't know. I didn't really pay attention to if he said anything about that. But still, traps are getting buffed. There is that. Now let's move on to the next section that's getting buffed, which honestly was not on my agenda of things getting changed, which is the Pierce Blades. Pierce Blades are all around getting buffed. Now all the regular Pierce Blades for the Elemental and Spirit Schools are getting buffed from 20% to now 30%. Now, in my opinion, I don't know, right? Obviously, this is just initial reaction. I wonder if this is going to be viable for Void Raid, because depending on how Shrike and everything works and how strats are going to be changed, obviously we don't know what all the other spells look like in the library that are getting changed, but it's a possible chance that Storm Spear, as well as possible other spears, being a little bit more valuable in certain fights. As well as there is a change to Cosmic Charge, that is now 25%. Very interesting to see. As well as Courageous Charge did get changed as well. So it's like a lot of buffs to the Pierce in general. As well as Spectral Blast did get its change. So now instead of, what is it, like 30, yeah, 30 Pierce Blades, now it's 45%. And I don't know if they should change this. I know some people were saying, yo, they should change this to blades. I don't think that they should change this to blades, personally. If Spectra Blast echoes blades and give you blades, I think that would be slightly too good. And I would see a lot more people running it, and then everyone's just going to be running Spectra Blast. I mean, yeah, there's an RNG factor of it being one of the elemental schools, but I don't think I would want that. I think it should just stay as Pierce Blades and leave it as that. But As you guys saw, a lot of the pierce blades, if anything, all of them are getting changed. They didn't mention any of the tri spirit or tri like elemental slash spirit blades, those pierce blades getting changed. If it's not on the list, I assume it's not getting changed. Whatever was mentioned, I assume is the only thing that's getting changed, unless like it's actually mentioned on top of that. But yeah, those are all the pierce blades that are getting changed. Now we're on the fire, because a lot of the schools got their own separate changes, whether it be ramps, onis, djinns, whatnot. I want to cover it. And the big thing that I've been waiting for, I think ever since Nightmare Dungeon at this point, is that we need ramps to be viable in casual play because of how annoying it is. Now when I mean ramps, I'm talking about specifically like backfire, djinn reversal, meltdown, and of course Oni's forge right here. Now these are currently how they work in game. These are only allowed in advanced combat slash PvP, and these are 3 pips. Well, these are all getting changed. So for example, if we look at meltdown got changed from all of them got changed from 3 pips to 2 pips. And then on top of that, they no longer clear 3, they only clear 2 now. But the dot also got a buff for meltdown. Backfire got a 5%, or not 5%, 5 extra damage on its dot, as well. It's now 2 pips and it only clears 2. Djinn's reversal got a kind of a big change. It clears 2 and it gives you 240 or 270% dot universal traps. Yeah. I don't know how I feel about that. That is kind of OP. There's definitely a lot of strategies that are cooking in my head right now with a lot of these changes when I'll go forward moving forward. But remember, these are now allowed in casual play too, so just be wary about that. But yeah, 70% traps. And then Oni's Forge, it clears up to 2 times now, and it is a 5 extra heal on the healing over time, as well as 2 pips. And then the other change that was mentioned on the stream was Caldera Djinn. Caldera Djinn got a slight nerf, I say, to its front end, but the back end of it did get a slight buff. So for example, the new Caldera Djinn is doing 1200. That's 3 dots that last 5 rounds, and it gambits up to gambits 4 traps, and now it's doing 1565. So it's a slight increase. It's 15 extra damage on the Djinn, which I think it will slightly adjust maybe one strat on one certain fight. I don't think it's going to affect too many strats in advanced combat, at least right now, just because it's only 15 extra. I mean, 15 is still a lot, don't get me wrong, but still it is still good increment of damage. And I did see some people mention that can this be changed to 11 pips. Now honestly, I wouldn't mind that. I mean, maybe PvP players will have their own take, but I wouldn't mind Djinn being 11, because if you think about it, fires don't have like the best hits in advanced combat. Like for example, if you can't dot in a fight, then you're not gonna be able to use Scion, right? And then other than that, the only other hit that you can really use is going to be King Art and possibly a Moon, right? But mainly people are just going to use King Art for the majority of their hits, because it clears a shield as well. You can't really use Sun Serpent in advanced combat because it's dots. So if it's a fight you really can't dot, people just tend to just opt in for King Art, just because it also clears a shield. So if the fact is, if for some reason Caldera Djinn did get changed to 11 pips, which I'm not against, it just means it's a better hit for advanced combat for fires, and it already is, don't get me wrong, just because you're gambiting 4 traps, but it just makes it even more viable, I guess. So yeah, I don't have anything against it if they were to do 11 pips. This is being theoretical, but the current change that they showed, it being like 15 extra damage, that is completely fine too. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts and opinions when it comes to fire school changes in the comments down below. But let's move on to the next school that got changed. If you guys have made it this far into the video, just wanted to remind you guys that 75% of you guys that watch me on a daily basis are not subscribed. So do me a huge favor and subscribe. We're on that grind to hit 10,000 subscribers by the end of the year. Alright, now let's get back into the rest of the video. Now we're on the Ice School, and Ice obviously got some changes as well. So all the ramps are now 2 pips, and they got slight adjustments. So Wall of Blades is now going to give you 40% shields, and it's only going to clear 2, and it's going to be 2 pips. And then Glacial Fortress got changed to 40% as well, and it's only clearing 2. And Djinn's Vexation got changed to 20% weaknesses, and as well as only clearing 2. And then Oni's Destruction is now 35 traps when it clears 2. So I feel like Oni's Destruction could be possible, viable strats. But there's some other spells that might just take the cake for being too good, which we'll talk about soon. And some other spells that got changed was Everwinter Oni. So front end of like the 835 is now less damage, and now it does 1300 for its Gambit. So increase on the Gambit. And then if we look at Iceburn Jin as well, nerfs to the initial hit, but the Gambit is now doing more damage. So it's now doing 1490 instead of 1420. And then Ice Scion of Ice, I don't have a max tier, I think, because all my spells are my other character. But max tier Ice, Scion of Ice is doing 690 or 1695 at max tier for a Gambit. Now it's doing 1735 at max tier. So slight buffs all around for Ice, as well as some changes, which is just how it's going to be for majority of schools. But the next school got some huge changes in my opinion. So let's head on over to the next school. The next school that we're moving on to is the Storm, back on the traditional Storm. Now for Storm, couple changes as well. All the ramps are changed to 2 pips, as well as some slight changes to these spells. And honestly, I feel like they're more drastic for a Storm, if I say. But first thing I want to go over is the Oni. Oni's being changed, so now the initial hit's going to be less, which is completely fine by me because I only use Oni for the Gambit. But the Gambit's being buffed, so now instead of being 2145, now it's being 2250. Big change, honestly. Like, Storm is blessed to be Storm, honestly, at least for me right now. But yeah, that's being buffed. And then Scion at max tier, what it currently it's doing, I believe, is doing 1970 for the Gambit. Now it's actually going to be doing 2075. The initial hit didn't get changed, but the Gambit did get buffed, so it's getting buffed by about like 105 damage, which is very good if I do say so myself. But if we move over to these cards when it comes to ramps, now Reap the Whirlwind is no longer going to be giving you 255 blades. This is going to be changed, so the percentage is going to be back down to 35%, and it's 2 pips. So Reap the Whirlwind got a nerf in my opinion. And then when it comes to energy transfer, that's also getting a nerf. You're only getting 1 blade now instead of 2 healing blades. The percentage remains the same, but still it's very annoying. Jin's Restoration is getting a buff in its heal, so now it's 390 instead of 345, as well as Oni's Attrition is also getting a slight nerf. Yes, it's getting 2 pips, but it's the cost is being 2 pips now, of course, that's what I'm trying to say. But now it's no longer going to be giving you 2 weaknesses, it's only going to be giving 1. So kind of sucks for all these. I mean, I don't know how often people were using these. I know Energy Transfer was used quite often for certain raids, as well as Reap the Whirlwind. So kind of sucks that, especially Reap the Whirlwind, it's no longer 55 blades, or no, it's not even gonna give you 2 anymore. So I wonder how it's gonna be for certain strats, so we'll have to see. But Oni being a buff and Scion being a buff is going to be really good for advanced combat strategies as a whole, so I will take that in my opinion. So now let's go over Myth and their changes as a whole. The Jin did get nerfs on its initial hit, so now instead of it being 1k, it is now being brought down all the way down to 950. So kind of a drastic change, I feel like, on that initial hit. But the Gambit's being slightly buffed. Instead of doing 1730, it's now doing 1775. So buffed there, just the initial hit, you're not going to be able to do as much damage anymore. And then when it comes to Scion, if we're specifically talking about max tier Mid Scion, it is doing 1415 currently in live realm, but they decided to buff the damage of it, so now it's doing 1490 at max tier specifically, so slight buff in that regard. And now we can move on to the ramps. Of course, all these ramps are now going to be 2 pips, so no longer going to be 3 pips, as well as it's no longer going to be clearing 3 items, it's going to be clearing 2. So if we start off with Delusion, Delusion is going to be changed to 2 times, and it's going to be giving you plus 35 myth traps per clear. As well as we move on to Betrayal, it's going to be doing the same thing in a sense where it's going to be 2 times, and you clear up to 2 shields, and you get 230, or you get a 35 trap per clear for myth. Then if we go to Jin's Defense, it is going to be clearing 2 times, as well as each shield clear is going to give you a minus 40% shield. That is universal, basically tower shields. So some sort of change on there. I feel like the 40% shields will be kind of viable to a certain extent, so I'll be looking forward to that, especially since you can use them in regular combat, which would be interesting as a whole. And then we have Oni's projection. It is going to be 2 times, and it's going to be clearing a negative charm for a 70 bomb instead of a 60 bomb now. So there is that. So those are the mid spell changes. Slight damage changes, of course. I think I'm mainly looking forward to, I'd say, betrayal out of those, but also part of me is looking forward to Jin's defense in casual play as well in certain fights. So honestly, it's a field day for me in casual PvE. I can make so many random combat strategies with a lot of these spell changes. So hey, there's that. But let's move on to the next school. So now we are on Life. Life didn't get any Jin changes. They didn't get as well any Scion changes, but their Primal Oni did get adjusted. So actually it's doing more damage and the initial hit is going to be doing less. So if you're not going to be gambiting anything, it's going to be doing less damage. So it's going to be 710 now. And the new Gambit's doing, I think, 1300 on the dot. So, hey, we'll take that. I don't really use Primal Oni as much anymore. I think there was a certain instance where I did, but maybe this can bring some rise out of me and I'll use it in some sort of fight. I mean, who knows? But there are some slight changes for that. And then, of course, for all the ramps, they are now 2 pips. But let's start off with Tranquility. Now it's clearing 2, and the hot did get increased to a 145 hot. So there's some slight buffs for that. Now for meditation, they didn't change anything from what it seems like, at least what Cam showed on stream. So I guess they decided to keep meditation 3 pips, unless this was an error. I mean, who knows? But judging by the screenshot that was posted, there was no changes to the heal at all. No change to the heal, and the pip cost remained the same. So very interesting to see when it comes to that, at least specifically for hots and dots. What it seems like they're not really changing too much, at least for the pip cost. Same thing as Jin's Affliction. Jin's Affliction didn't get changed as well. It's still 3 pips, and it's still going to be a 180 dot. So I guess hots and dots didn't really, like, the clears for them didn't get a buff slash nerf in any sort of regard. I guess they're just remaining the same. So I guess it'll still be 3 pips for that. But for Oni's Naturalism, we did get changes for this. It's only going to be 2 times, and you'll be able to clear traps for 30% blades instead of 15% blades. So that's going to be interesting to see as well. But let's continue on with the next school that it was being shown. Now, Death did get more changes compared to the other schools, I feel like, because they got, I feel like they're in the same boat as Ice, where they got basically all their stuff got changed. Well, if we look at Jin, for example, the initial hit of the Jin, if you don't Gambit it, is doing less damage now. It's doing 730, and now the Gambit of it is actually doing 1335, so slight increases to the damage, so 15 extra death damage when it comes to that. And then if we move on to Scion, if we look at max tier Scion specifically, it is doing 1360, so damage of it got a I'd say more increase, and the, yeah, I'd say the damage got a pretty good increase. 1425 on the new Scion max tier. That one's actually really good now that I think about that. And then the other change that happened was the Oni. Now, Doom Oni got a nerf when it comes to the initial damage. Is doing 900 now. And then when it comes to gambiting the shields, it actually got a slight increase in damage, very slight. Actually, it depends on how you do it. Still 40 extra damage, but the initial hit did definitely get changed a lot. So now let's move on to the ramps. Petrifaction did get some changes. It is now clearing 2, which this will affect certain strats, especially I believe, for example, this might affect the strat for TT challenge mode, because Petrifaction was actually needed to remove 3. But who knows, we'll have to revisit it at some point. I know a lot of these changes, when spell changes happen, I have to revisit a lot of fights, and TT is going to be one of those where I'm going to have to revisit it due to the fact of all these spell changes. But yeah, it's now clearing 2 blades, and they're minus 20% weaknesses now, and it is 2 pips. Now Contagion did get changed. It is now 2 pips, as well as it only clears 1 hot for a minus 65% 50% infection. So no longer it's going to be giving 2, it is only going to be giving 1. I know contagion was very good for certain strats, because if the opponent just had a hot on them, you can easily set up a ceremony, which is useful for certain fights. Anytime you saw a mob or like a boss in a 2-person fights, for example, and you saw one of them which is hot, for example, you just clear that hot instantly, and then that already puts 2 affections, and you just need to put 1 like try weakness, and then you're good to go when it comes to setting it up. But still, it will still be good, don't get me wrong, but it's just it's only going to be giving 1 now, and it is 2 pips as well. Now Jin's Larceny did get a buff to a certain extent. I mean, yeah, it's 2 pips, it's only clearing 2 now, but the blades on here are 30% now. So we'll have to see what this looks like. It being 2 pips, I feel like a lot of these ramps being 2 pips are probably going to create a lot of stalemates in certain fights, but we'll have to see about that at least. And then Oni's morbidity also did get changed. Now from what it seems like, literally what happened is they just nerfed the shields on this. Thankfully, you still get the 2 shields, but now instead of 50%, basically tower shields, now they're just 25%. So they're still good. Luckily, they didn't remove the 2 shields on it. It still keeps the 2 shields, but yeah, now it's just lower percentage shields. So there is that. So pretty good regarding that, at least when it comes to using it in casual play / certain advanced combat modes. But that's my take on that. Now let's move on to the last school, which honestly probably has the most insane amount of changes out of all of them. And now we save I guess you can say the best for last. I don't know how you want to view it, but Balance got the heaviest changes out of all of them. I feel like everyone else got like slight pip changes, slight adjustments to certain things, but Balance, I feel like, got the heavy hitters. Now, Duststorm Jin is no longer Duststorm Jin. They're probably gonna have to slightly adjust the animation of this, but Duststorm Jin, what it currently does in game, it's doing 285 elemental damage, so it's doing fire, ice, and storm. And then if you have the gambit requirement, which is 2 shields and 2 traps, you will do 480 instead on each hit. But this is no longer the case with Duststorm Jin. Now, instead, it's going to do balance, life, and ice damage, and then you will gambit 2 hots as well as 2 shields. So the trap is going to be gone, and now it's 2 hots. And yeah, like I said, the first initial part is doing bounce, life, and ice. It's doing 245. They also slightly increased the accuracy of the spell. And then on top of that, when you do gambit everything, it's doing 590. Very interesting. Yeah. So Duststorm Jin got a complete, I'd say complete rework at that point, because it's no longer doing elemental damage. It is now doing bounce, life, and ice. So you can't really just put an elemental trap on an enemy and then just use the leftover trap to buff up the hit. That's no longer going to be the case, because you're doing balance damage as well as you're doing schools over the opposite spectrum. You're doing life damage from the spirit schools as well as you're doing ice damage from the elemental schools. So that's what's happening with that, as well as Tribunal Oni is getting changed, so it's no longer doing spirit damage, and it's no longer gambiting blades and negative charms, because with the new Scion that got introduced, I think I already have it, yeah, with the new Scion, it was changed to dots and negative charms. So it being that, they had to change this, so it's no longer negative charms. Now instead, as well as the schools, it is now doing 245 balance, storm, and myth damage. Then if you gambit a positive aura as well as 3 traps on the enemy, you do 545 balance, storm, and myth damage. So very interesting, if I do say so myself. Yeah, I didn't think that they would do something like this. So same thing, you're not going to be able to put like just an elemental trap or like a spirit trap on the enemy and expect both hits to get buffed, or like a specific hit, right? Because as well as it's going to be gambiting 3 specific traps. So even if you have like an Ellie trap on them, for example, you're gambiting that whole Ellie trap to buff up your Tribunal Oni. And I wonder if they're going to be fixing the animations for these spells, because they were clearly showcasing like elemental effects as well as spirit effects. Maybe they might not change it, who knows. I'm kind of being optimistic and hoping that they do, because it will need slight animation adjustments, don't get me wrong. But it's kind of weird that we're now gambiting a positive aura. Yeah, I didn't think that would be happening. So Tribunal Oni, and Dust Storm Gym completely different. So on top of that, they got two ramps that are specifically got changed, and the first one's Jin's Fortune. Now currently what it does in game, it two times and it echoes traps and shields, you know. But now what it does is it gives you, well, first off, it's 2 pips, and on top of that, it gives you a hot that lasts 3 rounds, which is 345, as well as it gives you a 50% shield. So no more echo from Jin's Fortune, which is interesting to see. Now it's just going to give you a hot and a shield. But now is the biggest change of them all, and I think this is going to shake waves in casual play, in PvP, in advanced combat. So Oni Shadow, what it now does, well, currently in game it does 2 times echo, blades, and weaknesses. You know, you get the corresponding thing. Now what it does is it gives you a brace, a minus 20% incoming aura, which is basically a brace, and on top of that it puts 2 35% universal traps on the enemy for 2 pips. Now this is busted. This is busted on so many degrees, and honestly I'm all for it. And I've seen the uproar already about people saying this is too broken, because for PvP, balance wizards can just run max copies brace, max copy stabilize, max copy Oni Shadow, and the fact that it's 2 pips, yeah, there's going to be a lot of stalling here and there on bounce. Now another thing which I didn't talk about on the stream, was in the stream chat at least, was now you can technically potent trap as well as item card potent trap Oni Shadow. Now look, I know people are gonna be like, why would you want to do that? Fate exists and stuff like that. There are fights in game, and I've mentioned this multiple times, you can't fate in every fight you play. Certain fights you can't feint, and certain fights you can't do certain things. So being able to just have a team, and just hear me out, you have one person just Oni Shadow, but it's 2 35% universal traps. You have the next person potent trap Oni Shadow. Now you got another 2 traps that are 45%. Oh, third guy, yeah, I'm gonna item card potent trap my Oni Shadow, and now we have another 45% traps that are universal. That is crazy to me. That is crazy. And on top of that, everyone gets a brace. Literally, I'm literally defending myself as well as trapping the enemy. Yeah, I mean, I'm all for it. Those are all the changes for upcoming spells, at least that were teased today. We're still going to be getting so many teasers. There's still going to be so many spells. Basically, our entire library is getting changed at this point when it comes to spells. So just be wary for more teasers later this week, this upcoming month as well. And then, of course, test room is literally around the corner. So stay tuned on the channel. Make sure you guys are subscribed. I'm going to be covering all the teasers as much as I can and making sure you guys are up to date, as well as things to do on test realm. I'm going to be covering basically everything on test realm. Probably more than what I should be, but I'm going to be covering a lot on test realm, and a lot of you guys look forward to that. But that is it for me. You guys let me know your thoughts and opinions on all the spells. Do you guys think Oni Shadow is broken? Is there a certain spell that you guys that you guys saw that was changed that you're looking forward to? Or if there's like certain buffs, for example, like maybe you like the Turmo Oni buff, so now it's doing more damage. Like certain spells, you guys let me know in your comments down below. Of course, I assume devs will be looking back at your feedback, of course, in the comment section. So hey, put whatever you guys want in the comment section and discuss, of course, discuss. We always appreciate discussions in the comment section. But that is it for me. Leave a like, subscribe, all type of stuff, and I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Peace out, guys.